When the bosses meet at the peak, let's see who kept their teeth. War! Today, on War Wednesday, we're going to cover the World Championships, as well as give a shout out to the honorable mentions. And of course, got to give them gets at the ITC some love. We'll cover the top performing list from there, and I'll go over them with all the matchups. So what's up to the gets that are here? Of course, we have the stats and the facts, honorable mentions, and top player coverage. What's up, live chat? Welcome to everybody that's here, and the rewatch gang. So we had the World's Championship going on, but still all over the world we had people performing. And green is best, not only because, you know, we still had a decent, solid performance overall, not at the top, to be honest. We obviously didn't win. Everybody's aware of that. But when we actually go over the diversity of detachments that were able to be played at Worlds and win games and have a good time, Orks still made an appearance. And I think that's really what we as the community and as Gets like to see best. So as we get stuck in with Stats Huber, shout out to the Get Stats Huber. Whoa, what's up, Get? Saying thank you for this. He is wrong. There's not one event win. We've won two at least. So shout out to that. But Ork sitting at a 48% win rate and good representation overall. We had 300 players over this weekend. And the funny part here is when we talk about overrepresentation by about 20 times, you see we have more dakka making an appearance at all of the faction stats. Now, of course, this is skewed because it was one, essentially, I think it was two players. I think over the whole, yeah, there's two players. One player. Ooh, I just messed him up by the numbers. There you go. It was one player, but it's because he was at Worlds and he actually performed moderately well. So that'll be fun to look at. But let's look at the rest of the Ork detachments because, like I said, even though obviously everybody still had games all over the weekend, over the world, at Worlds, we've seen a lot of detachments being shown and people having at least, 50% win rates. And that's really what the stats that we're looking at here also represent. I think that's actually really encouraging, even though it's very, very obvious when you look at War Horde with the most players out of here, 100. There was two players. That's what I thought. Okay, two more dakka players, but it's 181 War Horde players. So of course we're well aware that it's the vast majority. And if it seems like it's only becoming more of a differential, the more people that are playing War Horde. But I see all the time within, of course, the community, so it's anecdotal, whatever, but online as well, and little Facebook groups or whatever interactions we have, plenty of other Ork players love to play the other detachments. So though our overall win rate's about 48%, we're still in the green zone, even for our top performing detachment being War Horde. So though it's way more preferred and more likely to be played, it's really not standing out as much in the actual, it's actually outcomes, right? Even when we do honorable mentions here week in and week out, there's often a lot of other detachments that are going X and 1 every weekend pretty much, but it's just so popular to see that War Horde's peak. But when we go look at the World's list, we'll actually see how those War Horde lists did there, right? But something that really is making a revival out here is the Green Tide, faction, the Green Tide players that are out there. Shout out to all the Green Tide gets. You guys know I love that. Love getting stuck in. Yeah, like Flynn saying that. It's always a meta read, right? What I mean by that, if you're someone new, intermediate, is someone looks at the field, what's getting powerful, what's peaking, and they realize, well, typically when the meta is very elite, or maybe even if you're playing a lot of kind of skirmish chaff units, having a horde that can just saturate the board or just mess up those dice by not having enough activations may be the meta call. And when you're looking for consistency, this is really what I want people to understand as well. When you're looking at these crazy gets that are playing Green Tide, not all of them are crazy, but the vast majority are, because your back pain, your knees, the effort you're putting into that, the painting. But trust me, I'm with you with that. The reason they're doing that, though, is very much because they understand that they also want consistency baked into their detachment, their list, and their run. Because when you're looking at War Horde or one of these other kind of monophase lists as well, you're really looking to break the enemy's back, really worried about actual damage. And knowing how Orks rules work, you don't have built-in a bunch of ton of rerolls, we're not a bunch of AP, not necessarily reliable to do our thing. You know, we could just fail some charges, you know. War Horde ends up becoming, yes, of course, I can absolutely be the have the best potential to beat the best player I may know. But when it's going over a large pool of opponents for multiple rounds, I need some consistent results, consistent scoring, and I can't really lean back into damage. And so that's why you see people lean back into Green Tide. And when we're gonna, I'll just give it a shout out right now. When you look at the Worlds, we had a lot of Green Tide lists at Worlds, at a lot meaning a good representation. I should be fair, right? I'm speaking kind of loosely here, so excuse me, gets. Then we go to Cult of Speed with a 48% win rate, pretty much 49. Let's just go to 49, right? We're gonna round up here. 17 players, still so exciting. Me personally, super excited with Cult of Speed. Again, we actually do have a list from Worlds in there, but we've seen a lot of lists just overall from an honorable mention week in and week out. Even Cult of Speed's getting in there, and you're seeing weird archetypes, whether they're adopting a Gaz or they're adopting kill rigs or they're just playing with the lunch death copters or bikers. It's just a lot to see. So Orks are just feeling very exciting even from these detachments. Then we go to Bully Boys, which is most of the time, other than this weekend, the second most popular Ork detachment. Sometimes people just want to enjoy that second wall, and I'm here with you for that. A lot of the times there's conversation as, is this the best teams list? For example, when we were talking about consistency, you can at least have a consistent game plan with Bully Boys, and then pick the matchup and kind of try to avoid those hard situations. What's up, Chad? Yeah, glad you made it. What's up? And then we go to the Hunt. So some crazy gets out there. I think it was, I should have put this in honorable mention, so get another one. I was talking to him, I get Stephen Pamprine, and he ended up running his Hunt list going 4-1, and we were just casually talking, and I was like, that's weird. Like, not in the way that I'm making fun of him, but just when you look at what most people are running, when you listen to the noise, we'll say, right, the internet, everything like that, you realize a lot of people are leaning, well, just War Horde, or they're like, well, obviously Bully Boys is the second one for that, and then Green Tide's a good meta deterrent, and you should be able to pick. But how often do you hear someone go, yeah, let me get the Hunt? Right, those are usually just crazy people, right? So it's funny because shout out to Steven out there. He was like, I want to play the Hunt, and I was like, why? And he's like, the Shats and pigs, like, what's up? Good enough answer. And they are adopting Gas. That's the funny part. All these detachments are adapting Gas, guys, right? And that's the ultimate. There's the good job, GW. I don't give you a ton of credit all the time, blah blah blah, but great job there. And because who else in 40k can say, in all my detachments I can bring my quote unquote Primarch Supreme Commander, centerpiece, whatever you want to call him, get. And so we're fantastic to see that we can use Gas anywhere and anytime, including the Hunt. And people have been making it work. A lot of the time it's the real benefit is once they maybe want the AP, or B, they really enjoy the out of wall of charge stratagem, and they're enjoying the kill rig changes. So that's about as much as I can gather from that. But if you're one of those crazy to Hunt people, which is other than more dakka, because more dakka is almost not existent now. That's why this is hilarious to see that there is a more dakka player up here. But the Hunt being the pretty much second most irrelevant detachment that we have. Shout out to you guys just still having a respectable win rate. Keep it in, keep it stuck in, keep it happy and piggy out there. Then we have Tactical Brigade, 45% win rate and 19 players there. Shout out to you, Cunning Gets. I'm appreciative of you. Not appreciative of what GW has done to us though through you. And I personally still has never gone back to that for any consistent amount of time, that detachment. And I think a lot of the time when we were looking about how Orks were going to look once we got the changes to Gas and the pigs and the point differentials, I think a lot of the time people were looking at Tactical Brigade as like the second or third best detachment that I was going to be, and it simply didn't turn out that way. Off the top of my head, if I had to put it, I would put Cult of Speed, Bully Boys, and Green Tide above Tactical Brigade. If I was looking for like some kind of consistent performance, it seems, even though I don't think there's anything wrong with Tactical Brigade necessarily, it's just you're trying to play the same game plan as everybody else when it comes to like the amount of units you have and the elite style of the list. And they just do it better than us in that kind of way, but we still pull through because gets it cunning and we have overall good, units. It's just then it goes through 5 rounds. Can we get this going off? And it just seems to consistently be that we end up somewhere around 3 and 2 with these Tactical Brigade lists, which is still respectable. Shout out to you guys for still running it. I'm just bringing that up that I think how we're kind of looking. So other than that, we have Dread Mob, the meme detachment with 23 players. But honestly, I freaking love Dread Mob. I just think people a lot of the time just straight up know what they're doing. They're picking Dread Mob because they're bringing the Stompa, they're bringing Gorkanauts, Morkanauts, whatever it is, and just having fun with it. But I do think it obviously has teeth, and it held us up for a long time when we were actually at our lowest. So no hate on the Dread Mob. And like chat saying right now, meanwhile, Calgar still has 4 units. There's still 4 Calgars, and there's still at least more of them coming. Or some freaking chat player. Yeah, and GW give Ultramarine more rules, so that was pretty cool. Now let's look at our honorable mentions, of course, as we always do. And this is live, so what's up with the chat? Sorry, my voice is a little weird. I'm getting over a cold. But I want to give some love to these guys, of course, in the comments after the video or even during this. You can really shout out these. If there's enough interaction, maybe I'll get through it if we're not too late on the WCW list. And comment, Rewatch Gang, let us know. We'll pull up some of these next week as well. But to start off, before we get into the WCW list, and like I said, chat, get stuck in right now because I'm here for you. I see you guys right now popping off. We have Ed Heapy with a winning, yet unfollowable, unknown list. And even though I know that seems weird, I can actually show it to you on BCP. I wasn't going to do this, but I decided, like, for anyone who's just watching, that would be weird to see. Maybe it came on. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it showed up last. Oh, there we go. See, that's his list. It's lots and lots of orcs. So I'm assuming it was a green tide based off of that. But I actually don't know, right? But this is a event, but there wasn't a lot of people, so it wasn't a GT. But so I get why he didn't really put the list up. Nonetheless, wanted to give it. I went all the way back. I went all the way back. My bad. But I want to give him some love just because it's fun to see that orcs are going out there. It wasn't enough rounds, but hey, shout out to them gets, because it's kind of pushing into the idea of is the green tide really making a comeback here? That's really why I wanted to show it, just kind of to get the juices flowing, the wand juices flowing, the squig juices, whatever. Then we go to Jer Collins with a 4-1 green tideless as well. This was coming out of Broadside Gaming 40k ITC seasonal major. So there we go to the ITC. We do actually have another list from that event that we're going to show off as well. So it was hard to both those gets. It was hard to choose whose list I was going to go over. And this was in Ireland. But nonetheless, I decided, hey, Jaren should still be given acknowledgement. Also, green tide list. It was a bit more of the I don't want to say standard, like it's like so figured out, because it's kind of still in development. I'd say green tide is kind of hitting a new sort of development stage right now, where people are kind of looking to get with it and trying new setups. But his is more of what we're familiar with if you look at the wall tactics content as to how we look at green tide, the units you'd bring, the combos. Jared Collins was more along that consistent archetype, and that's respectable. Really nice to see that it's still going good even like almost a year later. So awesome green tide, but you can see it's kind of starting another way to evolve. Not that it's kind of pushed through yet, it's just people are experimenting with it. Like I said, it's a meta read right now, and people are saying the green tide strength, chat saying green tide strength is making your opponent concede before the game starts. That, or you will concede from your knees and back pain. No, I was kidding. Then we go to Carlo with a 4-1 War Horde list from the Armored Commando, right? I was going to say Armadillo. I was going to say mess this up in so many ways. So I'm just doing it both ways. With a War Horde list. So shout out to that get. Love to see War Horde list just still getting out there and getting stuck in, getting the respect on own name. Then we go Alan Davidson as well. 4-1 from the Brew Hammer GT. What I will say, from what I understand, which is double check. Yeah. So the Alan Davidson list from Brewhammer, it was another list in Ireland, and it was an event in Ireland, and he had a Stompa with his War Horde, and he ended up losing his last round. So very weird, very hilarious. Don't know what to say about you guys over there, but whatever was happening, keep it up. Stompa War Horde, I guess, is a thing. Everybody, this guy's proved me wrong in his lunacy. And then before we get into the first list that the main list I want to cover from the ITC first, before we go into the WCW, because once you go into that, I ain't going back. But I want to cover a list before that, just see what chat has to say. What's up, Kuna Cunning Brutal? Yeah, I was gifted a box of old Ork Boys. is a mere 100 minimum boys, 100 for green tide. We have our content for that. To answer your question, just to elaborate more on that, we do have videos, we explain on that, but 100 is good. You're solid, don't worry about it. But you know, there are margins greater and less than that can be worked with. But good question nonetheless. Shout out to everybody that's here. Of course, remember, Rewatch Gang, this is live. I'm here to talk to you. We getting stuck in. Guess the fun part. Talking to myself is not the fun part. So let's look at the get that I want to cover this week. So, like I said, it's from the ITC Seasonal Major. Want to get some love. We have David Kelly with his 4-1. Oops, I don't know why I put War Horde. Hold on, we're gonna put this back because I'm gonna fix that because I don't like that I put War Horde. I was too excited. This is green tide. So while I have this on screen, let me just put the correct thing up. Oh, I was almost gonna jump ahead. Here's our get right here. There. Boom. I put it up the correct one from here, and then I'll also fix the display. So there we go. David Kelly, Broadside Gaming, Green Tide list. So we have Gazgul Thraka, a Pain Boy with Bloodthirsty Belligerents. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 20-man units of boys. That's what I'm talking about. Now, when I say this, what I'm talking about is because there has been, as the comment we just read, kind of speculation. Do I go to the 100 as the minimum? Do I break it down to 80 and bring more tools and utility? Do I straight saturate for 120 and more? And a lot of the time the answer had been about 100, but I'm glad to see that we're pushing back into 120. I think if you're really trying to get it going in the tide where we're at in the meta, you do want to get to that. But as well as that, we got the wagons. Now, I have seen people bringing one wagon a lot of the time to kind of hide one of their more elite, miss-elite type mobs, or to make it easier to just position and kind of sacrificing one of those boy units. But because David sacrificed so many of his characters, as the typical Green Tide list, I would say has at least 2 to 3 pain boys, 1 weird boy, 3 war bosses, on top of whatever character you bring as well, like a Snickra or a Gaz. Now people are starting to bring Gaz, and even when people would bring Gaz, they would still bring other war bosses a lot of the time, at least. So this is just a totally different kind of development that we're seeing out here. Not sure if it'll stay, not sure if it's the complete way to go, but he was making it work. And then because he did sacrifice all those characters, he was able to get more of these battle wagons on the list. And then I think I fixed that. Well, no, I think I didn't see pulling up. Here, let's fully. There we go. Fixed it visually so you guys can see all at once. So you're still able to pay for the double wagons instead of just paying for one. And then he still reached the 120 boy threshold. Then we go to 10-man units of 11-man units of Gretchen. Now that's straight up, I need to screen my backfield, but if the enemy doesn't, have any kind of deep strike, because obviously if they look at you and they go, there's no way I'm getting behind your field. Well, you got some more grats for some doing some more stuff. And I love having just more grats on the list, which is just more bodies. Then we go to 10-man units of Mandos. I am still very, very, very heavily into you need at least 1 10-man unit of Mandos with your tide list every single time. Argument, some people are saying for 2, not saying I'm doing that, not saying I'm testing that, not saying for you to do it, just saying there's a chance. But we always have at least 1 unit of Mandos. Breacher, Rocket, and Power Claw. If people don't know by now, you choose where the war gear goes, including the bomb squid, including the distraction grot. So all your nice stuff and shiny bits in one unit, all your other stuff in the other one with the runts, and then you let them die on the screen. And then 2 5-man units of Storm Boys. Some people might find that odd. Maybe I wouldn't bring something a little more durable, or I can try to find points for a truck if I drop a Gretchen, or trying to fit some kind of unit into more mobility, durability instead of that kind of mobility. But it's about the mobility. Now, I still to this day see people say I don't like Storm Boys and don't know how to use Storm Boys. Do a video on that. The top 3 units you're using wrong, but in short, Storm Boys, when everything's getting stuck in, all these boys at the mid-table line, and you're fighting and you're worrying about piling in there, you cannot afford to have a stupid biker unit or a buggy or a truck or another unit like a flash gate unit that only moves 6 inches and on 40 mil base to do secondaries, to get in the way, to throw precise grenades, to possibly do interesting heroics, to possibly stop units from making clean charges into a 20-man unit of boys. I mean, just simply being able to have another unit that can get in the way in these matchups. It's like, Storm Boys make their value for more than I just have this unit that's going to run up, do area denial, and then absolutely die. And I think people a lot of the time think just because they have their boys there that can run and do secondary, it means they absolutely have to. Don't throw them away just for like any measly 3 points or 2 points of secondaries, right? Make sure you actually care about how they're being used. And in the green tide list, I promise you, there are circumstances where having just more bodies to get in the way of maybe counter charges or to interrupt other mobs or matchups, or just maneuvering the battlefield with your fly is a big deal. So at first I was like, man, he paid for both Storm Boys, but yes, he paid for more Storm Boys, because I know ultimately somebody's like, well, I can thin this out more. I can drop a grot and bring him something else other than a Storm Boy unit. There is argument, maybe a Snick Rot would be kind of interesting, but boys are consistently moving compared to a Snick Rot, which is doing his thing like once and then hoping he doesn't get picked up after. Now let's look at his actual path to victory. Oop, or don't. Oh, yeah, I do. I'm on the same. All right. Let's look at his matchup. I think I had, yes, I do have the missions at least. So that's cool. All right. And no, the storm. Okay, bikers aren't stupid. I absolutely love bikers, right? Someone's gonna misquote me, be like, "They're gonna you stupid." No, you're stupid. Knock your teeth out. No, bikers are great. It's just about once you actually have to move around the field, and you have so many boys in the way and wagons taking positioning, you're just straight up like, "Nah, dude, I can't even get to where I want to go with these guys." So even though I'm a huge fan of bikers, especially now that 65 points, the argument is there. Then you can even say, well, what about a Copta unit? They're tougher. They got some rockets for the dakka. Just the fact that your infantry also is big importance there, at least in that sort of game and what's happening in these fights and these engagements. Because like I always say, when you're fighting with these tide lists, you got to cross that midway point. So let's take a look at his path to victory real quick, and then the matchup he lost, and the list of what each mission was. So let's take a look at his first matchup. It was to the Tyranids Invasion Fleet. So we have a Neural Tyrant, one Biovore. What the? A Hierophant? Really? I was really interested. Like, okay, what was this going to be? One Malscepter, a Neural Lictor, Norn Emissary, a Psychophage, Screamer Killer, Tyrannofex, and Von Ryan's Leapers. Now, not to be completely disrespectful to the list, of course, right? There is some say that if you don't time your walk correctly and you're not consistent, maybe you can, let this matchup get out of hand. But the fact that you have Gaz means you have actual proper answers to a lot of these killer units. Rupture cannon, like, okay, my battle wagon, I guess. I would say a nice counter to a big old monster is obviously a Greed Tide. So that's kind of like I said, I'm at a match. So then we go up to the Gids. What's up, Jet? Whoa, see everybody. His second matchup, which was into Imperial Knights. So I've actually done this matchup into the Imperial Knights with Green Tide, Older Tide, and not with Gaz. So it was very different, I'm assuming, once you actually have Gaz. So we have Canis Rex, his new and improved form, wink, wink. A Knight Castellan, Knight Crusader, 2 Helvrins, 2 Warglaves, Cladius Assassin, and Calexis Assassin. That's fun. I gotta pay me more boys. So, oh goodness, guys, I was like, what am I missing? Excuse me. So for mission 1, it was Scorched Earth Tipping Point. Sorry, just the Hierophant just threw me off for a second. I don't know, even though I've seen it, I don't know how I forgot that. So Scorched Earth Tipping Point, Hierophant doesn't make it too interesting of a game. But mission 2, Lichpin, Search and Destroy. Okay, now that makes this a bit more of an interesting matchup, in my opinion, on Search and Destroy for the Gits. One, close deployment line zones, right? So you can actually get stuck in. The knights are all going to be stuck in their little corner of the field, meaning you're going to make contact with a bunch of them. That definitely helps. And personally, I've always appreciated that matchup as an orc. And then them having to actually retain their home field. Now, like I said, you already search. It's like, okay, whatever. But I like that matchup and these kind of units. None of these are like the CSM versions where they have the battle cannons. I mean, let's see, they have the shield breaker missile launchers, twin siege breaker cannon, and then the other one's the Crusader. Yeah. They do have the rapid fire battle cannon, but I would say that the mission itself favors that. I don't know have the yeah. Okay. What it is, boys? What's up, Rick B? Whoa! Now, what I was actually more interested in 83, 86.1 there, excuse me. I feel like gas makes a huge difference there. You have gas, you're playing on search and destroy. If you go first, big deal. You actually have the wagons to run up and try to, get stuck in and get in positions and stage up and then disembark on the following turn or force them to try and disembark you. Mind you, you still have the surge, so you're already close to them. If they shoot you at the wrong unit at the wrong time, there's a chance that you can actually blood surge, what was known as blood surge, excuse me. Where I should know what the strat is actually called, but I've just always called that. I always just tell people that's what it is, so they know what it is. But you can obviously just move into the enemy, then you can start keep regrowing units. So I'm actually totally cool with that. And they're not getting through it. They just dice. The knights just don't have the dice like that generally. Now, if you stand right in front of them across the table in a big deployment zone and they can try to pick you apart, then run into your unit, tank shock it and such. But now that we have Gaz, that matchup is even more favorable in my opinion. So now we go and look at his actual third matchup, which is the one he actually lost. Which so far I've been happy because this guy's a lot of gets, a lot of there's a lot of models. He has wagons, keep himself safe. So yeah, but now we go on to the game he lost, which was against the World Eaters. Now, this is the new flavor. If you guys didn't know, overseas, the ITCs, we have a lot of Zerkers around them gets. So we have Karn the Betrayer, which is absolutely crazy for his points. Whenever I tell orc players this, right, when we hope to come, just giving a shout out, GW get ideas. I want us to have an epic character that's a war boss that crumps, similar to how they have Karn. Just saying, that's what I want next edition. Then we have Lord Invocatus, Lord on Juggernaut, and then a Slaughterbound with a Berserker Glaive. So in this matchup, I mean, this list is very simple. 3 big bricks of Khorne Berserkers. Now, if you're not familiar, real quick, I'll just break it down. They have 4 of these Khornite Eviscerators, which is essentially 4 power claws. So imagine if your 20-man unit of boys had 4 power claws. That'd be pretty sick, right? Mind you, these guys innately already move quickly. I think they have like a base movement of 8, I think it is, or something silly. And then they also have built-in blood surges. They can stack lethal sustain. They can also do fights on death. They can do 6-inch pylons and 6-inch pylons as well. And then, of course, like the fight on death, like I said. I was trying to remember everything that these guys can do. So it's a big issue of, well, they have their weight. They definitely have the weight of dice, the proper strength values, and yeah. So then on top of that, they also had 1 basic 8-bound unit followed by 1 exalted 8-bound, 2 units of jackals, and then 1 chaos spawn. So early game, a spawn comes out, maybe a jackal comes out, they interact with your mandos. You stage up, and they start to pick you out, try to take out your 8-bound, your wagons with their 8-bound. You're kind of like, well, I have to engage with these guys, not wounding them too well. I have to be a little bit of aggressive here. If their objectives, I can reroll wounds. But really, once you have to start dealing with these bricks of Zerks, your units aren't able to really one-shot them. They do have the ability to -1 damage as well. Not that our green titleists have a bunch of 2 damage, but any kind of 2 damage units like Gaz's sweep can be mitigated as well. So even though Gaz is a huge deal on this, and he does have the potential to absolutely destroy one of these bricks, if they choose to, -1 damage, it's going to take that whole gas unit commitment generally to crack through all of them and their characters in a reliable way without the reroll wound strat. And then something else is on the fields fighting, getting blended through. So yeah, it's a tough one. And shout out to Plug the Self. We have the after action report coming out, and I'll just say it now. I used our current War Horde, and I went into about 50 of these Khorne Zerkers with 8 bounds, very similar to this list, and they blend everything, and they're fast, and they can engage with you, and yeah. So, and even these Jackals, they get an additional pip of strength when they get on charges. They're built in. I think they're actually T4 instead of T3, as you would assume from normal cultist type units. I mean, the Slaughterbound himself was able to kill like 10, 10 flash gets in our matchup game. So I mean, he himself could be interacting and blasting through mobs of boys if you don't roll saves well. So that could be pretty crazy. And I'm not really that necessarily surprised. As for the mission, it was Terraform and then Crucible of Battle. And I think there's also something like if they die, they kill you, they get to sticky the objectives. There's a bunch of fun, silly stuff they can do. But nonetheless, that would definitely be a hard matchup as a Tide player going into very fast. These bricks that can run into you, buzzsaw through your guys. You hit them, they fight on death and shoot through that unit as well, and then keep hitting you with these smaller units. And then on Terraform, trying to take them back. So no shame there. Typically, like I said, these are these WTC tables are more dense. So that's why you see these 60 Zerker lists around the field, because they could just come out and blast into you and interact with you at will. Just like the 8 pound, they're fast enough and such. And yeah, Jackals are T4, like I was thinking. So they're just silly. It was silly, I know, because I was like, what, man? My Mando should be crumping them gits, and they weren't. So that was so I'm just saying. Then we go into his 4th game where he makes his comeback here, where he gets Knights again. Oh no, sorry, I said Knights. I'm dumb. It's Black Templars. Why did I say Knights? What was I thinking? I was thinking something else. I don't know what I was thinking. Just I don't read that well, you gets. All right, so then we got a Black Templars list. So we have double. And the detachment is companions, vehemence. So we have double Castellans, Crusader, Ancient, and extra, whatever that guy is, a Judiciar, and double Marshals. Then we have, that's what I thought, two of the big Crusader bricks mobs. So as you can see, if you get overseas, whoa, there's a mob meta going on, you guys, right? So when you're looking at the world list that we're going to be looking at next, you can see why Green Tide lists were getting appearance and why there was a good mix-up of mobs, even though they were playing on GW terrain. It is a meta read. It is an adjustment that's kind of universally happening. If your faction can do it, people are leaning into it. So as you can see, the stats are kind of enveloping while we do the weekly analysis. We're watching the tide slowly rise. But also that means we see the other mobs crumping around and we got to get stuck in. So then we had, so I got too excited, but two big bricks of Crusaders, followed by an Intercessor, double Black Templar Impulsors, one Assault Intercessor, Jump Pack Intercessor, excuse me, Black Templar Repulsor Executioner, Infiltrator, and then 2 units of Sword Brethren. What is actually respectable on this is that you got more mobs than them, and it's going to take their true commitment to clear them. Your regrowing is going to be great, and your Gaz backbreaking potential is going to be great. What's nice about Gaz is that now he's going to retain the Feel No Pain longer generally, because the invuln on longer, and he's going to be able to keep regenerating guys. Plus, that buff that he's giving to that unit is going to exist on top of the reroll strat. So he's going to be able to keep getting stuck in and crumping through these mobs, which would feel great. They have like nothing other than Armor of Contempt for their defensive. I don't even know if that. Yeah, they do. What was I going to say, dude? This ain't CSM. Of course, they have Armor of Contempt. Whoa, champ! And then, but yeah, this has always been a melee kind of struggle. We go back and forth. Again, though, this was a take and hold mission, so obviously very simple, but it was a search and destroy. So when you got these mobs and they're kind of just stacking on the line, and of course they still have infiltrators the unit, but we have the double Mando units. We can cover more of the field. If you deploy your Mandos first, then your mobs can stage up first, take position, and then crump on them. It's a search and destroy matchup for a Green Tide, though it would be very annoying to actually deploy, and you do end up kind of stuffed in the backfield. You just surge over them. You just, okay, I'll run into you. If you shoot me too much, there's a chance I can move and actually get into combat with your unit. I'll regrow some guys on 2 objectives. I'll take the staging stages first. And so this would be just a nice slogger knocker, good fight, good old-fashioned crumping. And then we go into the last matchup. It was nice to see that we're doing a mob better than the other mob, right? Then we go into the Necrons with this Scatterstar. So we have double Hexmark Destroyer, Luminor Suzeros, Emotech the Stormlord, Psychomancer, Technomancer, and Silent King. Just looking at all those characters as a Green Tide list, I'm like, yeah, thank you. You probably don't have enough stuff for me. Then we have Crypto Swarm, followed by a Canoptic Wraith unit, some Crypto Thralls, double Doomsday Ark, a Flayed one, double Locust Destroyers, a Scorpack Destroyer, and a Tombblade. So through all my matchups with Necrons with Green Tide, this is one of those ones that they're not known for their durability necessarily against such volume of punches. And even if they do, like, for example, right, Doomsday Ark, typically very annoying for most armies to deal with because there's a built-in 4-up. It has a good amount of toughness, not toughness, excuse me, good amount of wounds, but it lacks in toughness. And it has long range interaction. Once we start touching this as orcs, and if we can make contact with something like this variety, we just blend through it with just the amount of sheer dice we're putting on it. Once we also have guys on this list, not saying they're gonna give us that, not saying we're gonna get that one in this matchup. Ooh, because this was, like I said, this was his last matchup. Because I should have said the mission first. This was Purge the Foe and Crucible of Battle. So what I mean by that is he's not necessarily and typically in the matchups going to want to give you like these 40 points Locust Destroyers, these little flayed ones, and try to just burn through all his little chaff. If he does, of course, you can do better on Purge, but then he has nothing left and he has to stay toe-to-toe with you. And you're like, oh, you have a Canoptic Wraith unit. Of course, Canoptic Wraith units are respectable. They can reroll wound, they can fight, they're regen, they're hard to take out. They'll regen on each phase, so you can't really do anything about it. They can bring back multiple of those wraiths, but you have gas, you have reroll wounds. Those guys are generally always on wounds, and you're always putting just a stupid amount of dice on them. And then once you have that, they expect Gaz, they expect Emotech, Luminor Suzeros to do a lot of the heavy lifting, and that's just not the profiles you want into Green Tide units. So having double wagons that you can stage all these boys up in, zoom them into great staging positions, then you have other boys jumping, walking forward, meandering behind cover, getting chipped at, growing a little bit closer, and then just pile driving into them, out OCing them, and honestly just deliberately chewing away at all these units. He doesn't have that many units either, even though he does have, like, he doesn't have to have Lettuce Gretchen to get interacted with necessarily, keep his Storm Boys. So he's about 4 or 5 units that are getting killed reliably often. And then the battle wagons are the other kind of, well, if they focus with the arcs and get shots on them, then yeah, they're gonna bop them, but that's not good for like tempo for their scoring for Purge, right? So 75-point win there. Hard when both these lists don't actually have a ton of units. But then when it comes down to, we have a lot more OC. We're gonna be pushing the pace. You guys don't have the dice for us. That would be fantastic. So that was a good read on overall how the meta was going to be shaking out. But as you can see, what he lost to, what he faced, that 4th round, it's a thing right now, guys, that people are running mobs and just bringing more and more units and more and more models. Not just the read like we've seen from winning the people who won worlds of mass unit count. So last shout out for this get, and then ITC, we had Gaz, a Pain Boy, Bloodthirsty Belligerents, 120 boys, 2 wagons, 2 units of Gretchen, 1 Mando unit, and then 2 units of Storm Boys. So shout out to David Kelly. I really appreciate that he was willing to drop all those characters. I do personally still have the crutch of wanting to take war bosses. I would still want war bosses on my units personally. So if we ever talk, Kelly, or anybody knows in the comments, let me know. if he would consider that in his change, or if it's really worth it to really just drop for 2 war bosses. You can just get a whole unit of boys. So if that's really worth it. So nice to see. Ultimately, we'll wonder if this change stays through the meta, if more people adopt this style of Green Tide. Nonetheless, war for David Kelly. So, with that being said, it's time to talk about the biggest gets over the weekend. Yeah, it's a little bit of a long one, guys, but we're here. So we're going to be talking about the world's list. Shout out to the guys that attended. You guys are all champs regardless. So if we go over this and you see someone's list, no hate on anyone. All you guys are awesome. For anyone who even appeared here, and any orc player that was still happy enough to take and loved our orcs enough to still show up with them to Worlds, knowing that we have a hard time with consistency for such long round events. I'm just really excited to talk about all the get lists that we got to see, the detachment representation we got to see at this event from the orcs, even though we might not have pushed through to be at the top of the mountain. Ultimately, orcs still kept their teeth for how we did. So let me close some of these other tabs because I was getting a little out of hand. So of course, shout out to our War Siegs. Yeah, it's funny. Me and David co-host. Our vote was for Siegs to win the event. No lie. And I know it sounds funny in hindsight, but let's go to the very first get. What's up, chat? Whoa, let's get rolling through the chat, boys. So yeah, let me know what you guys think right now. Right now, going through these chat while you guys are here. Really let me know, what detachment do you think was doing the best through Worlds, or at least which one did you presuppose? Did you guys just assume War Horde was going to be the best? Did you know some weird kind of get was going to creep out with more dakka or something, or what? Now, we're also going to look at this because if you're someone who's not too familiar with it, you're going to look at the rankings and just be like, oh, okay, that guy probably got a better record than everyone lower than him in the rankings. Not necessarily true, because when and where you won in your rankings also had to do with where you won and lost in your rounds. The order of your wins and losses also determine kind of how high or low you ended up going, right? So that will be taken and shown off into consideration. Yeah, chat. Thank you, Ryan. Not going into it. Chat's already saying War Horde or Green Tide, I think, was going first. War Horde people are thinking War Horde. I think we all thought was going to do best. Well, we're going to look at it right now and see what the best we're actually taking. And we're going to look at the highest ranking orc list right here. Like I said, some that we're going to look over might even have slightly better records, but because of the order of what he won and the point differential and everything else that they take into consideration, the ranking still ended up this way. So it's still pretty awesome. And I just thought this guy's list was pretty crazy, and it caught everyone off guard. So we have Jan from the Czech Republic. Shout out to this get. We're going to take a look at his list, and then I'll probably just point out maybe his losses if you guys want, or not necessarily sure exactly how deep we'll all get into here, but I definitely at least want to go through the list. Now maybe I'll go through their losses. So nonetheless, let's go with our boys list. We have Jan's Dread Mob. Whoa! I knew none of you gets were thinking Dread Mob. Now I'm not gonna say Dread Mob was the best performing consistently, because I think he's the only Dread Mob list from what I remember. But he was a top ranking list, so it was pretty freaking hilarious that Dread Mob was here. Not only that, but Jan is just as crazy as me, but more crazy because he was able to perform, and he's the most crazy Big Mac, and we'll see right now why. So we have triple Big Macs with shock attack guns. Nothing fancy. We all understand what's going on here. Of course, to get Finder goggles, because that is such an awesome enhancement. Excuse me, guys. Sorry, I'm getting over being sick. But such an awesome enhancement to ignore cover. But let's continue. Of course, in this detachment, you're able to take Grots as battle line. He just brought 3 minimum size unit of Gretchen. Okay. Then he moved on to double trucks. 2 trucks here. Maybe run some kind of SWAT team, advantage firing deck. Of course, tank busters are slow. You got to be able to see stuff. A unit of Death Coptus. Here's another unit of Death Coptus. So we got some deep strike potential going on. Little rockets on the field, little saturation maybe of toughness, and the Blade of Wounds. So I appreciate that. Death Copters are pretty dope. We have a unit of Flash Gits, 2 of them. So as you can see, both trucks are going to be possibly running SWAT teams. So either a flash kit and a tank buster in one. So most likely, well, pretty much the only way it's going, because you can't fit two tank busters in one unit would they have characters. So you'd put a tank buster and the flash kit into one truck in each one of these units. And then the core of this list. Yes. 18 killer cans. Whoa, let's go. Let's go. All right. You guys thought I was playing around. Now, this guy doesn't completely obviously vindicate everything I've ever said, nor does this mean he's absolutely correct and that I'm absolutely correct about killer cans. But it does mean we're on to something, right? So here we have 18 killer cans, even more crazy than me, because I actually always in the videos, if you look, I have killer can content, how to use them, talk about them in Dread Mob. I talked about killer cans more than anybody. Because I'm biased. I like killer cans, not because I'm smart. So with that being said, I didn't even think 18 killer cans was that legit on GW. I thought it was a little, excessive, but he made it work. And then we have 3 units of tank busters. Now, just quickly, if you're here and you want to understand what tank busters, killer cans can do, for example, in Dread Mob, of course, your tank busters, your killer cans are all equipped with rockets, so they're all D3 shots. You're hitting on 4s because you're grots instead of orcs, of course. In Dread Mob, you have a strat that you can reroll 1s. If you push the button, or you press it faster, you can actually end up making it full rerolls to hit instead. Then you also have a strat for big shells for bigger gets. So if you throttle that strat as well, you can end up getting +1 to wound, +1 damage into an enemy vehicle or monster. So that means you'll have these rockets. They'll be able to full reroll to hit roll, and they'll be able to get +1 to wound and +1 damage with the rockets onto vehicles and monsters. Of course, you have the button, which is the actual detachment rule. So you'll be able to have sustain, or lethal, or extra AP, which is only on 6s to wound. The AP I'm talking about. So typically you're going to be choosing sustain for your rockets. So you're going to say sustain on all these rockets. It's going to be 6d3 blast shots, full rerolls to hit. And then if you need to, you can pop big shells for bigger gets as well on that strat. But it gets better. You in the WAAAGH turn, you're going to be able to advance and charge. Of course, but there's a strat in Dread Mob that allows you to get assault, so you can advance, shoot, and charge with the 6-man unit. On top of that, the strat allows you to re-roll the advance innately built into the stratagem. So that means on the go turn for one of these can units, you're going to be able to advance, shoot, and charge, re-roll the advance, re-roll the hit roll when shooting, possibly, and then you get stuck in. So your cans are base strength 8, baseline strength 8, -2, flat 3 damage. 3 punches each. So on the wall, there'll be 4 punches each. Again, you have access to the button, so they can all have sustain. And then there's a strat in Dread Mob where you give yourself +2 strength and +1 damage in combat. So then you would actually turn these guys from strength 8 to strength 10, and then +1 for the wall. So strength 11 on the wall. So then you pretty much have a walking nuclear warhead with these killer cans. It's absolutely crazy. You blend so many different units. Nobody's expecting it. They're like, what? You have what? Yeah, I'm gonna hit you with about 24 strength 11 -2 damage 4 punches with sustain. Don't worry, it's only on 4s. They're like, what just happened? So it's fantastic. Of course, and you can do a lot of these combos I just mentioned outside of the wall. And then you have the 3 tank busters. So you're just getting stuck in. So absolutely crazy freaking list. And he went over the top with that. Like I said, the Def Coptas, you got more rockets here. These guys got built in twin link. And then you have the toughness 6. So real quick, I'll just like I said, we can, if you guys like a list and chat, I can go back to it more and go through it and say more about it. But right now, I just want to get through a couple lists, and then we can come back to the rocket to Jan's list, right? So as you can see, game 100, lost his second game, won his next 2, and then lost, and then won, then lost and lost. So still based off all of the criteria, ended up being the highest ranked orc, breaking the top 100. And absolutely cool to see. So for all them gets that go, whenever they see my Dread Mob videos and they hear me talk about show the list reviews, and they're like, well, that list isn't a Dread Mob list because there's no walk list. Well, if you would have watched the other videos, you can see we could run killer cans. You can run 3, you can run 2, you can run 1. Killer cans are legit. And they're fun in Dread Mob. Now let's take a look at his next list. We go to Billy the Guest. Now, this is what I was talking about earlier. You're going to see lists that we show over before that are going to have better, quote unquote, winnings. But because he won his first 3 games in a row and the enemies that he went up to ends up pushing him into another bracket, because he was able to win his first 3 games in a row, which is actually hard to do, I obviously still want to show his list. But this was actually the typical War Horde. This is just the War Horde list that most of us are actually familiar with right now in the meta. So we have a Big Mech with Follow Me Lad, Boss Nickrock, Gastro Thraka, double war bosses, one with Edward plus Kill Chopper, and then a Weird Boy. We have 20-man unit of boys, a 10-man unit of boys, 3 trucks, 1 breakable unit for the war boss, 2 big 10-man units of Flash Hits, 1 unit of Gretchen, 1 unit of Commandos, and then 2 5-man units of Knobs and the Storm Boy. So I said the war bosses are for the Knobs. Obviously, I was actually wrong. They could be, but you know, pretty much every single matchup, 99% of the time, play with the Knobs because you want the -1 to wound, and Knobs suck without a boss. So boom. Nonetheless, this is pretty much standard version of what's going on with War Horde. If you don't bring the second mob, you end up bringing more. You end up bringing more power claws. You end up bringing more skirmishy AP type units and tank busting type units, and then the 20-man flash kit units. Now, I've been using these for War Horde. It's been fun. Not sure if it's like the way to go, or my favorite way to go necessarily yet, but they do feel pretty solid for strats. Outside of the wall and after the wall, they have pretty good outcomes for critical 5s if they're punching, or the ability to artist nails, or even an interesting fight on death sometimes. So flash kits, for where they're at, for the points value and such, how they fit into transports, are making their appearance there. The nice, good, what we consider meat and potato, or the structured, understood archetype that we run by right now, is what Billy was running, getting second best in rankings, and he was able to win his first 3 games, which makes sense, right? He's playing gets that maybe aren't peak yet, don't have a ton of the best reps into orcs maybe yet either. Oh, and I actually do have the missions for at least the first 4 games for when he was actually going through them. So mission 1 was Purge, Hammer and Anvil on GW8. Mission 2 was Tipping Point, Lichpin, Hammer and Anvil, GW8. And then for his 3rd game, it was Terraform, GW2, Crucible of Battle. And then for his 4th game was Scorched Earth, GW2, Tipping Point, when he finally lost. So he was gone through those missions before he actually took his first loss, and then that was a respectable loss. So that's why he still ended up so high. So still a great job to Billy. No shame there at all. Of course, like I said, we're just showing these people to give them some context on how things are going. That's actually where War Horde was kind of more ending up. Of course, like I said, we can come back to any of these lists and run through more of their actual path to victory if you guys want. I see chat already talking about, yeah, it was 43 D3 rocket shots from Jan's list. Oops. From Jan's list right here, this Red Mob list. Yes, it was 42. Sorry, our math's wrong. 42 D3 rocket shots coming from his list. So that's not only outrageous, not only meme-ish, but actually very potent. So then, yeah. But Billy's list, which we were actually following for the first 2 days in a row, I was like, dang, only gets still undefeated. Hard to do. He was the only one. He was the only one, you guys. So out of all these lists, Billy gets a ton of credit for making it that far without taking an L regardless, because then you're fighting the big dogs, right, guys? Losing your first game, and then losing your 4th game are huge differences in the rankings and the perspective, the opponents, the bracket you'll be in, stuff like that, right? So awesome, fantastic. So let's move to, so great job, Billy. Then we move to our boy John Holbrook, distant friend of the channel. Shout out to that kid. the Green Tide advocate himself, been running these Green Tides for a hot minute. He ran Green Tide last year at Worlds. He was the #1 performing Ork player last year at Worlds. So much respect there. And as you can see, like I've been stating throughout this video, yes, other people had worse, quote unquote, worse, records. John did absolutely excellent with 6 wins and only 2 losses for his Green Tide list. So let's take a look at his Green Tide list. As there's about top 3 world gets of Green Tide, right? I'd say it's Noah Bedham, John Holbrook, and then I'm willing to throw someone else in there if I might have overlooked them, right? But these are literally the 2 best Tide. These are the off the top of my head best Green Tide players I know of. So great job here. Nice to see them get the representation. That's why stats looked the way they looked earlier in the video. What's up, chat? Yeah, our skies are filled. We will blot out the sky with rockets. That's hilarious. All right, so we have Boss Nikrot for this Green Tide list. Gazgul Thraka, a Pain Boy with Bloodthirsty Belligerents, another Pain Boy, a War Boss with Voracious Show Off, double War Bosses, and then a Weird Boy with Brittle but Cunning. We actually have a video of him earlier when he won his GT or was doing, I think, or qualified for this with his Green Tide list and seeing him how he was doing. So he's been testing this for a while and kind of tweaking it. Excuse me, I had a brain fart there. So then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 units of 20 boys, and then a 10-man unit. So quite different from the other Green Tide list we were talking about earlier today with the 120 boys. Here we see he's got 90, right? Keep you guys on your toes, guys, in the chat, right? People want to always ask, like, is this direct? The way we do it, hey, we do how we want. No, I was kidding. No, I mean that in the generous way. Like, Orks, you guys can figure it out. We're mobile in that way. Of course, the terrain matters too. Then we go on to Battle Wagon, followed by Boom Dakka Snaz Wagon. This was actually a new development. Though I've been hearing about this and talking about this, and I think this was something that Noah was talking about like literally like 8 months ago when we were making our video. So check that out as a member and check that out in our video things. But double Gretchen units followed by 1 Mando unit. So the Boom Dakka Snaz Wagon, if you're wondering, it's for the counter go turn where it's like he knows he's going to run up, get into a fight. Maybe there's an enemy matchup that's going to counter interact with him and charge him. He wants to force the -1 and hit so that he's more likely to survive. That's really what it's about. It's about utilizing that -1 to hit in certain matchups to mitigate the ability to kill them. Because shooting armies generally aren't going to be able to one shot, one tap, or in an interesting way efficiently deal with mobs of boys, but melee units can. So that's the point of why he brought the Boom Dakka Snaz Wagon. John also, the 20-man boys, goes into a wagon, helps keep him nice and safe. As for his breakdown, typically War Bosses, boys, and then he does sometimes put the Weird Boy by himself with Cunning but Brutal for that 10-man unit. And Gaz with the Pain Boy, because you got to keep Gaz alive. So great job to John Holbrook there. Like I said, any of these lists you want to see, chat, let me know, and we'll get back give it a double look later. Because I think I got like 7 lists I wanted to show from the world list overall that I thought were interesting from Orks. So like, let's keep going here. Those are the first 3. Okay, I just reset because whatever. And then we go to our number 4, our boy. Well, I guess he's not really our boy because we haven't really talked directly, but I've watched your content since I started 40k. So shout out to Seth the Mad Doc. So Seth the Mad Doc out here, he did take a first round loss, but I mean, Worlds, of course, you're finding the best gets around. After that, great run. He ended up coming out with 5 and 3 overall, so very successful there. Great job breaking the top 150 there, Seth. We go into his Green Tide. Now, I think I've either seen him write it or like hear him over talking it somewhere, but I think him and Noah talk. Shout out to Noah, the king of green with the Green Tide here. But Seth has been repping this for a while. So regardless of what ideas he's developed or learned, he's himself is the pilot of this. So great job. We have Gazgul Thraka, triple Pain Boys, double War Boss, and 1 with Ruckus Warcaller, and then a Weird Boy. I appreciate the Ruckus Warcaller too. Good. I appreciate. I concur. 1, 2, 3, 4 units of Oh, did I lie? That's what I thought. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, it is 4. Okay, 4 units of 20 boys, 1 truck, 2 minimum sized units of flash kits, 1 Gretchen, 1 Mando, triple storm boys. Like we were talking about earlier with Green Tide, you want the jetpack boys to mobilize the field, to score, to maneuverability. Otherwise, you just got stuff in the way, and you really feel really slow outside of the wall. Mandos are mandatory, and there's always the contention of, do I want dakka for my Green Tide, right? You know, the flash kits, they go inside the truck. The truck can run around firing deck, jump out, do some stuff. Early game skirmishes typically, if you're able to somehow keep the boys safe up, staged up. Nonetheless, awesome job, our boy Seth the Mad Doc. With his Green Tide list, a bit of a different archetype, still a lot of the fundamentals there. So awesome to see. Okay, so let's do. Oh, it starts me all over, guys. Sorry, I have to click the list. We're going to the 5th list, and then I have 2 more lists after this that I actually see. But then we go to Keaton. He lost his game 1. Like I said, that was Purge, like I mentioned earlier. So everybody knows that's a hard game, typically for kind of Xenos type factions. But he had the fundamental War Horde list is what we can kind of call that right now, right? So people have been wondering, where did War Horde kind of float around here? There's the second War Horde list we've seen. So out of the top 5 in ranking, 2 of them are War Horde, not all 5. So we go Big Mac, Boss Nickrock, Gastro Thraka, a War Boss, 120 man boys, a 10 man boys, 1 truck, double battle wagons. You're seeing a lot of double battle wagons. Ooh, audio picking up. All right, I'll make sure not to touch the mic. 1, 2 breakable units, 1 big 10 unit of flash kits, a Gretchen, 1 unit of Mandos, 20 man unit of knobs, and a Storm Boy. Whoa! So this was hard to hidden, is what I wanted to say. I appreciated how he had a big man, a big 10 man unit of knobs. He still had breaker boys on the list, gas. So this was really looking to get stuck in and knock some teeth out. Does seem a little susceptible, though, like we can understand, to Purge. So I can kind of understand how he lost that round 1. Nonetheless, great job breaking even on 4-4 with this, scoring 2 big 100-point games, and then still breaking into 2 90-point games as well. So great job with what we would know as like the fundamental War Horde style list. I would say that's how those feels. Sometimes it's just very rewarding, and then it can also have its very punishing matchups or missions. So great job there, Keaton, with the War Horde. We had that fundamental list still coming through with its performances. Now, what I want to show are a couple of the other fun let me get this out of here, guys. I don't want you guys to see everything. Let me get me off screen. Non-predictable detachments that everybody's seeing. So we're gonna pull 2 more lists out here, and these were gets that performed with the not most popular detachments. Of course, there's still more Ork lists. So if you guys want me to show more Ork lists, I can. But yeah. So after that, the guys we're having, we'll say, more losses than wins, but not all of them. So I have to go find his name. There's a good amount of guys. So let's take a look at this fun get right here. Oh, my hair looks fun with that. All right. Where we have our boy Jensen Go. So yeah, chat. You read me right here, Nicholas. I see Smith. Yes, he brought the more dakka list. So we have Jensen Go. Yeah, we're over here at the 273 bracket area now, but it's about having fun and getting stuck in, right? So let's take a look at Jensen's first matchup, where he has the more dakka list. So we have 2 Big Macs with shock attack gun. One of them has the targeting squig, so +1 to hit. Gazgul Thraka, 1 mech, and then a Zagra Ward Snagga. You guys know I'm a Zog laser. And then so let me continue. We have a 10 boys. Double battle wagon. Man, you see double battle wagons everywhere. Double battle wagons, the big super unit of Grotz, 2 minimum size unit of Grotz, 1 Mando unit, 1 big unit of Mega Nobs with Power Claw and a Kill Saw, triple units of Storm Boys, triple unit Tank Busters. Oh, so here, this is hilarious. I didn't even notice this before. So I'll read this out to you guys. More dakka cheat sheet. Infantry walkers get assault. You can ignore -1 cover. My wagon can use this. So now this makes me go, well, did it have hard case? And to answer the question, no. Right? So that means you could fill this with stuff and then use this mech to shoot out of it with +1 hit. Like we talking about mobile firing decks. So he's saying I can ignore cover with my battle wagon. Oh no, it wouldn't get infantry. Well, you only got to worry about it on the wall. So it doesn't matter that you don't have assault, or it doesn't matter if you don't have sustain. For the keyword, you're just shooting out of the truck vehicle. Who cares? And you can use the strat itself. So the wagons can use it because that's the thing. The more dakka stratagems are actually not that exclusive. So the detachment ability is exclusive, but the more dakka itself, when you read the strats, it just says Ork unit can ignore cover. Boom. Ork unit, additional AP. So he's saying right here, I can get more cover. I'm not sure if the wagon get additional AP, but he pulled that in there too. Put units not into wall, non-Gretchen units. You can still get gas into there, which would feel great. But did it exclude gas? I don't think it did. No, it just made it 2 and then excluded Zod, right? Because Zod was doing everybody's day back then. So yeah, and then you have the 1 CP shooting back stratagem, which is hilarious. That if someone shoots at you, you can shoot back at them, and the walkers can get +1, and there you go. And then he just has the tank busters, everything else that they can do. And yeah, he said it right here at the bottom, like I thought. My wagon is T10. So fantastic. I love that. So we've been talking about like the mech boy and the mobile truck itself running around, shooting out of it with certain units. And that's something that I'm in favor of. We've seen it for War Horde and a bunch of different attachments. No one, and I mean this, no one that I've covered or looked at has been brave enough to actually bring multiple battle wagons, take the art case off, utilize the firing deck. Last time I seen that was literally Index Hammer at the start of edition, when he used to have a firing deck like 20, which is hilarious. But now with 11, people are like, well, I don't know if I want to do that anymore. This gives that I'll stick tank busters in there. I'll give it +1 to hit. I'll have it ignore cover, and I'll just shoot you outside of the wall. Then when these units are out in the open, I'll keep doing it. Put my gas unit into wall outside of the wall, so you can retain his feel no pain. And then of course they have the basic like reroll wounds on objective and such. So this is pretty sick to see. So Jensen Go, he ended up actually 5-3 with this list. So cool. It was hard games. So Purge, he lost Purge. He won Linchpin on Tipping Point, Hammer and Anvil, so GWA. And then game 3 and 4, he lost. 3 was Terraform, 4 was Scorched Earth. They were both on GW2. 1 was on Crucible and 1 Tipping Point for the deployments. So that's what he was struggling on with this sort of list. But after that, I'm not sure what the missions were after that, but he caught his groove for that bracket he ended up in for the final 4 games. So great job there. Very exciting to see from them gets out in Vietnam. Always nice to see that he was cunning but brutal, because people are always so worried about like, I gotta play the meta thing to perform the strongest and do whatever. Man, Jensen was out here going like, I'm gonna do stuff you guys have never seen. So shout out to that kid for getting stuck in. Yeah, to like our boy Nicholas scene. I want to see that right now. My mic's still working, guys, because I think I messed it up. All right, let's look at my big head again while I pull up my other list. Now, we have the final list that I want to show you. If you guys want me to repick any, like, peek out any other lists again, to just give another look at, or if you guys want to see something, let me know right now in chat. Yeah, let me know in chat right now before the end of this. And then we go into the final list I wanted to show, which was Johann's list. So this was close to my heart. We have a cult of speed list. So for this cult of speed list, we have Gaz Gulthrock himself. Okay, so the chat's telling me that that's the thing we do in live, boys. We do it live. So I have to get an editor. No, I'm just kidding. So let's see. We have Cult of Speed, as we see here. We have Boss Nick Rock, Gaz Gulthraka, and then a War Boss. Super funny that we actually see Gaz in Cult of Speed. You can see Gaz in every single Ork detachment, and it works. So we have a 20-man unit of boys, one bow wagon, triple max unit of def copters, so 18 def copters, 2 units of Gretchen, 1 Mando, 1 custom booster blaster, arguably the worst buggy, in my opinion. But what it does, I shoot you, and you get -1 to hit if I hit you. That's what it does. Then we have, I think it's only for shooting also, so I think it's even worse. I think it when it hits an enemy, the enemy, okay, he brought it, man. He's the world's legit, right? I'm just saying. We're just talking and asking questions. 1 10-man unit of knobs with the power claws, a storm boy unit, 1 big thick unit of war bikers, followed by 2 minimum size unit of war bikers. So the question generally would be, we got Gaz with the boys, and then the 10 knobs with the war boss. Okay. What was interesting about that to me is you generally see one like melee mislead type of unit in most Cult of Speed lists. So typically it would just be the knobs or something like that. But now you see Gaz with 20 boys and then 10 knobs. So he really felt like he needed the damage as well for this. And then from that, he really just said the def copters themselves are almost all volume Cult of Speed. So you get sus 2, you can get critical 5+, of course, within 9 inches. You have a reactive move, you have a 4 Binvuln on these weird ablative wounds type unit. They have decent OC, and they're cheap as dirt for the most part. So yeah, I personally like Cult of Speed a lot. Very odd list, I would say. The only thing about Warbikers, I mean, they can get Lance, and then they'd be appreciating Gaz's lethal aura as well. Very odd, very unique Cult of Speed list. What I will say is I had seen Johan's list before for Cult of Speed, so he's been playing the detachment for a while. But the fact that he decided I'm just going to play with Gaz is hilarious to see. So I think it was very much about just lining up and while actually mattering, smashing into the enemy, doing enough damage, and then having enough left over that your def copters can fall back charge, still you pop their invulns, still end up getting into skirmishes, still end up stealing objectives, scoring points with the rest of your stuff. So I think the list works as a, I'm not going to hit you as hard, but I'm still going to hit you very hard. Kind of bust your nose up, knock your teeth out real quick, and then the rest of my Cult of Speed type units are still going to be running around the field trying to score, trying to get in skirmishes, diminish whatever your hurt units are, or diminish whatever your scoring units are, try to stifle your scoring in that way. So that's kind of how I think that list would work out, where the first kind of turn or two are very similar to what other Ork lists would be, and then boom, you do some weird shenanigans. So yeah, he won his first game, and then he lost his next 4 games in a row, and then ended up going strong for the last 4 games. So shout out to this guy. He, made Cult of Speed work. So that means all in all, at Worlds, went too fast. Went too fast with my finger. Get out of here. Yeah, you crazy 42 blot the sun rocket get. So overall, at Worlds Championship for the Orks, we have, sorry guys, yes. I actually like the idea of that. For the Orks themselves, how they did here at the GW World Championship is we had 2 War Horde lists for the top 5 ranked lists. Then we had 2 green tide lists for the top ranked list, and then a random ass 18 killer cans dread mob list as the top performing ranked orc list. Yet there was still an appearance from more dakka and cult of speed. So that's 5 detachments. Dread Mob. I gotta use my fingers to count. War Horde, Dread Mob, more dakka, cult of speed, green tide. So orcs were able to show up, make appearances, have what I would call winning performances. There was only one list that or at least moderate respectable at Worlds. Going 50-50 is still pretty solid for winning with the kind of list that you feel like bringing and doing well. So you know that there are still 5 lists that were able to perform. Some they were better do other more than others, but ultimately 5 lists were able to detachments were able to perform well enough, or people still had confidence in at least 5 of the orc detachments to take them here. So that was really exciting to see, fun to see. I think it was encouraging as well because some of the most outrageous lists that I've seen, like with that cans and the cult speed list was so silly. The more dakka list, what the heck was happening? But yeah, we still got to see the more serious traditional green tide war horde list that we'd see at singles events. So I was excited. I think orcs, nonetheless, we're sitting at like that Goldilocks place that if some other people in the next data slate get nerfed, we can slowly shuffle back to the top. So we're actually doing poor enough, in my opinion, still in some ways, that there's a chance that we just catch a couple buffs and not any nerfs at all. And then other enemy like factions that we have some annoyance with. Actually, let me get this out of my face. Some enemy factions that we might have annoyance with, like maybe Eldar, people are struggling with, you know, or maybe some kind of at the ITC players, like I know the World Eaters list have been kind of doing well into kind of green tide list. Is there more that we can see or can get from if some of the topper echelon factions break down from getting nerfed? But the 40k meta as a whole is very healthy right now. So I don't want anybody to be manhandled and smushed down. I just want maybe just a couple units to be decreased in points just for some diversity aspect, and boom, we're all pretty excited. So thanks to chat, everybody with that. Right now they're saying this smoothed out. Well, I guess we're at the end, so I mean it smoothed out eventually. Can we get some 18? What's up, Fighting Fedora? You crazy get. Can we get some 18 cans, 18 Coptas slop shorts? Oh my god. I don't know if we'll get them as the shorts, but that'll definitely make me funny. But can we just have some cans and rockets flying all over the place hitting us? That would be pretty hilarious. Nobody believed in me when I did the cans videos and said these things are actually playable. Trust me, I tested them. But if you are smooth mushroom brained enough, you will play with every unit and make it work eventually somehow, or get your teeth knocked out trying. Whoa! All right, so I'm pretty excited for orcs. So keep a lookout for our coming up content and everybody for getting stuck in. We have the boss Snicker out next week for the paint competition, and then we also are gonna have a guest coming up for next Friday. So once we get that 100% settled, we'll announce that. So keep a lookout for that interview. So with that being said, there's only one thing to keep in mind: is don't cross our wall because we'll not get T-Val. Whoa!